Well, I'm slowing things down a little bit because I am heavily pregnant. In fact, I think I'll show you my belly. Let's see.
Woohoo!
Baby girl's coming real soon, really, really soon. And I've been doing some workouts, but I'm slowing some things down and really trying to educate my strong, sexy mamas. So I brought on my buddy from Fit for Birth. This is James Goodlatte. Hey, James.
Howdy.
Well, I wanted to chat with you too about corrective exercise because my other certifications do not involve the corrective exercise aspect. And we all know that as our center of gravity shifts, like when we've got a big belly and then after you've birthed the baby and you're trying to get back to where you were, our center of gravity is shifting. We get postural deviations, we get kyphosis. Oh my goodness. You get lordosis. And there are all sorts of things that we can do, exercises we can do to correct these postural deviations and to kind of ease some of the little niggles that we have. So I'm going to sort of rapid fire with you, go through a few issues that prenatal and postnatal women have come to me with in my classes, and you can explain some things we can do to help. So the first thing, we talked about this postural deviations. How about a sore upper back? What do we do about a sore upper back?
Well, a sore upper back is, you're going to have to strengthen your upper back muscles into posture. So that is true. However, I wouldn't start there because what's already happening when your back is starting to, like, you know, feel the pressures of breastfeeding and holding baby, if that's all that it is, that starts to wear on you. So you actually have to start with relaxing yourself first. So it's sort of like a tricky game to play, but the first thing I'd say is lay down on a foam roller vertically, or just give your body time to relax for a moment, even if it's just 30 seconds periodically through the day. Rest your body, and then maybe even while, if you wanted an exercise, literally while laying on your back, bring your shoulder blades together and start to feel a burn between your shoulder blades for perhaps 10 seconds or something, and then relax, and then try it again, and strengthen yourself in a place where gravity's helping you. So that you can then build into strengthening yourself in a place where gravity is fighting against you. Because if you start doing it while gravity is fighting against you, you can start to strain muscles that are already strained, right? Does that answer your question?
Yeah. So one of the best things to do initially, if you have a foam roller, is just to lie back on it like this, let your arms hang, and let gravity kind of do the work for you. And then additionally, once you're in proper alignment, start working those rear deltoids and rhomboids with our posture exercises.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so next up, what about a sore lower back? That's what seems to get me during pregnancy.
Yeah, lower back is the first. Now listen, there can be a couple things, but the thing I'm going to throw out there that's probably going to affect most people is, please, you have a tail, and your tail is up or tail is under, right? Your tailbone. Yeah. And you want to turn your tail like under.
This, or like this.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And so you want to just press. So what you could do as an exercise, a practical exercise, literally right now, if you're having back pain, is stand up and start trying to tuck your pelvis under, hold 2, 3, relax, and then tuck pelvis under, hold 2, 3, and then relax. Exactly.
And tucking it under. I probably should not. You know what? I'll just take this off. How about that? Then you can really feel the belly. So I'll do that. So we hold 2, 3.
Yeah.
And then come back.
That's it. And then remember that in some of your exercises, you're probably going to be going there. And then remember this, your pain is your body communicating to you. And so when that pain happens, your communication should say, oh, look, I went too much tail up. Let me try tail under. Breathing is also going to be a pretty big piece there. But I'm sure we'll be touching all that in a number of other places. Start by tail tucking.
So pelvic tilts is, and we can do that not just from a standing position, right? We could do it from a kneeling position, lying down, several different ways that we can do that to keep things interesting and not get boring. Next up, a lot of pregnant women talk about pelvic pain or pubic pain. And just to preface this, we will be talking about when women should go see a health practitioner and not just a corrective exercise specialist. But pelvic and pubic pain, what do we do about that?
Yeah, the foundational piece that's going to have to be laid there is that we have a widespread issue happening in society for pregnant and non-pregnant people. And that is that we are a chair-borne civilization. And if we look at throughout modern history, we did not have chairs for most of it. And we now have, our cars are seats, we have couches, and we have chairs. And when we spend that much time in that position, we are losing one very important muscle, and that is the glute maximus, glutes in general. And so you've got to get that back. And typically you've got to stretch the hip flexors or relax this, what some of you may have heard of as the psoas. So relaxing the hip flexors, turning on the glutes is going to be the foundational piece. Now listen, if you do some of those things and you find that you're not making progress with it, that's when you would go to a more qualified woman's physical therapist, preferably, or a physical therapist in general, but a woman's physical therapist is going to help you specifically with those types of issues. And that's where you would, refer. But that's how we do it at Fit for Birth. You go as far as you can with getting your core to work and getting your, in this case, I'm talking about your glutes. So whenever you're dealing with pelvic issues, you got to get your glutes to turn on. Right. That's the simple first starter path for it.
And what we learn as trainers, just in our general certifications as a personal trainer or group fitness instructor, is taken up a gear with Get Fit or with Fit for Birth. So what you always say is, yes, we need to stretch out our hip flexors, but we also need to strengthen our glutes. And one of the best ways to do that is by keeping our weight in our heels, right? When we're doing our squats, for example.
That is a common cue for fitness professionals. And if it works for the client, then great, do that. But also know that it doesn't always work for every client, number one. And then secondly, know that even if it does work in the heels, you should eventually train your client, or you guys out there should train yourself to also feel your glutes, even if you're on your tippy toes, even if you're on the fronts of your feet. In other words, you're a functional human being. Your glutes should work even in catcher position where your heels are off the ground. And that's just not the case for much of us in modern society right now. So that's a very typical cue. And let's make sure that really the cue that's overriding everything is feel your glutes. If you don't feel your glutes, then I'm sorry, your leg exercise is working probably the wrong muscle. And I'm going to say, I like these sort of one-liners to sort of hit people and sort of shake them, because a lot of people are like, well, aren't I supposed to feel quads and hamstrings when I do squats and things? And well, yes, those muscles are part of it, but they're secondary, not primary. Primary is glutes. And so when I'm training, there is one track mind. You feel your glutes, or we don't do that exercise. Or we figure out a way to do the exercise with glutes.
Right. Yeah, in fact, I'm quad dominant and always have been. So that cue is one that took time for me to get, but it does help me turn on my glutes. Otherwise, my quads just would always want to turn on. And then also if you have pelvic and pubic pain, doing some of the lateral movements that are too wide or too deep can also cause issues, can't they?
Yeah, you're right. That's a very important point. We should not skip over that, is that if you're having a pelvic girdle pain of some sort, the traditional things that pregnant women should know is please be careful of wide leg swinging exercises, stepping exercises like the side lunges, and also jumping or plyometric style exercise. Those are the standards of be careful if you're pregnant doing those things. Now, I'll tell you, at Fit for Birth, we like to push the boundaries. And so we remind people that it's not that pregnancy causes you to not do those. It's that imbalances cause you to not be able to do those, right? So that's very different. You are not, just because you're pregnant doesn't mean that you are to be in a wheelchair, as they say, right? You're not, like, that's not that you are an athlete. You are actually far more capable as a pregnant woman physically than you are as a non-pregnant woman, believe it or not, in a ton of different ways. So, it's time to kind of drop those myths, right? Like, let's get it done.
Good point. And then next, incontinence. It's something that nobody really likes to talk about, but it can be a reality for some women in the prenatal and postnatal period. And there are exercises that can make it worse and exercises that can make it better. So let's talk about that.
Yeah, well, I'll say that the exercise that makes it worse is not being able to use your pelvic floor, which includes any exercise that does not have you using your pelvic floor correctly. Okay. So,
and it's so forgotten by the fitness industry, isn't it?
Oh,
it's so
for sure, for sure. Yeah. And by the way, I ritualistically make 75 to 90% improvements in literally one session, just teaching someone one hour session, teaching someone how to use pelvic floor, because most people know how to use pelvic floor, but what's not happening is it's not happening when you jump rope or when you go running. And so there's a continuum. First, you practice it without movement. Then stage 2 is with slow movement. Then stage 2 is with fast movement. And that's how you'll practice. So if right now you know and you feel comfortable that you know how to do a pelvic floor, close and lift your pelvic floor muscles, then you can then start practicing closing and lifting those pelvic floor muscles while doing slow movement, which could be a squat or a lunge or anything that you know otherwise. It wouldn't be jumping just yet, though. Right. Jumping would be stage 3, but that's it. And in 1 hour, you could literally take someone through, but it is, you know, be reasonable with yourself. Take a few sessions, take a few weeks to just say, hey, this week I'm going to do all pelvic floor in different holds, isometric, maybe in a side plank or something like that too. And then the next week I'm going to do slow moving. The next week I'm going to do a little faster moving. But always my focus now is pelvic floor. That's how you make sure that you don't show up later with incontinence.
Right. And a lot of women actually do it incorrectly, correct? So what are the things to keep in mind? And just quickly, if you can, but what are the things to keep in mind when we are lifting our pelvic floor?
Yeah, I would say that there is those two cues that I'm using. Close means closing the sphincter muscles. You have a front sphincter and a back sphincter, and that's essentially the vaginal sphincter and the anal sphincter. They are both unique muscles that can be independently contracted. So first, just see if you can. Hey, let me close my front sphincter. How does that feel? How strong can I make it? And then second, can I close my back sphincter? How strong does that feel? Often we'll find one being stronger than the other. Then close them both and lift. And they say for a woman, it's lifting the uterus. Oftentimes it should be like if you are peeing, you stop. You should be able to stop peeing and literally have no dribble, supposedly, right? It's literally like close off, boom, and it's done. And so if that can happen, then you're probably doing it well. You know that those muscles are right. But it's true, supposedly half at least of people who are cued on doing Kegels aren't doing them well. They're sort of squeezing their glutes or sticking their tummy out, or
going like this and all sorts of things. So that's why I always recommend see a women's health physical therapist to be able to make sure you're activating those muscles correctly and your transverse abdominis as well. I think this is a good time for you to talk about your core breathing belly pump, which is a signature move for Fit for Birth. Other certification companies have similar things or call them something a little bit different, but the core breathing belly pump is something you like your clients to incorporate into every single exercise, right?
Yeah, well, again, my job as an educator for professionals is to make things simple. And one thing, this core breathing belly pump is, I'll explain it to you right now. It's inhale, fill belly and ribs, just as we started. And then stage 2, let's say, would be exhale, close and lift pelvic floor. And you breathe 20,000 times a day. So if you just practiced every time you thought about it every once in a while, you'd start to tone your core. You'd start to create a midsection that is no longer at risk of diastasis. You'd start to create, remember, core is the most important thing from a fitness point of view. And what many people don't know is that even though you're doing a core exercise, doesn't mean that you're actually getting your true inner core. If you are not able to breathe into that torso corset canister and to have it do this in the midst of an exercise, then I'm sorry, you're not using your core. And that means that when you go to pick up your little one, your toddler, whatever, and you don't use this, you are now suffering the micro traumas that become your diastasis later on. And so if there was only one exercise that I would give you in this entire thing, and that we essentially spend an entire 30-hour course teaching fitness professionals up front, it's the core breathing belly pump. Because without, like literally 96% of the time, we will have someone who has a back pain, who has a pelvic pain, a knee pain, you name the pain that's going on, and we go through and we teach the core breathing belly pump, first lying down in a still format, then slow moving, and then a little faster, and guess what happens to their pain? It disappears. And it disappears literally on assessment session number 1. And that's pretty amazing, right? That's the number. If there's only one exercise that you guys do out there, come back to this. Write it on a Post-it note. Put a message in your, a timer to go off every once in a while in your calendar. But make sure you start learning how to inhale, fill belly and ribs, and then exhale and close and lift pelvic floor. Oh, by the way, on that exhale, hug baby. If you're pregnant, hug your baby. Let your belly move.
So
let your belly get smaller.
I'm inhaling into the belly.
Yeah, perfect.
Exhaling.
Excellent.
Inhale and exhale.
This, Anna, is how you're gonna.
Lifting.
This is how you're gonna avoid not only, and diastasis. A reason I'm gonna throw that term out there is because a lot of people are afraid of diastasis. It's not a monster coming to get you. It's literally a symptom that your core didn't work. If your core doesn't work, then you might have back pain, or you might have knee pain, or you might have diastasis, or you might have stretch marks, by the way. You want to avoid stretch marks? Then don't let your belly hang out for all 9 months or the 3 months of the third trimester when it really is the most aggressive, right? You've got to have activity. Use it or lose it.
Well, I have to say one thing about this, because I do incorporate, I call it connective breathing. And I start with the deep diaphragmatic breathing, and I'll do some pelvic floor activations and try to combine them. And I do spend some time on them in the beginning of my class and end of my class, and sometimes even in the middle of my classes too. But I find trying to pair the core breathing belly pump with some of the other exercises, it gets to be too much for women in a group fitness setting. And they just throw in the towel and go, this is too much for me. So it does take time. It's something that it takes practice, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's literally reprogramming dozens of years. The average human being loses your natural breathing mechanisms within 3 years for 2 reasons. One is that we live in a sedentary society now, and even our children are suffering that. And then 2, our children are copying our parents, the primary male and female caretakers. And so, we have a responsibility as parents to teach our children, not by telling them. We all know that that's the lesser way to do it, right? By showing them through our own example.
Yeah. And just really quickly too, can we talk about the benefits of working our TVA, our pelvic floor, and using our diaphragm instead of out of our chest? Just a few of the things like de-stressing and restoring and preserving our core, things like that.
Yeah, I mean, part of this, as I mentioned at the beginning, that our stress response is different, is that when we get stressed, we have a natural biological evolutionary program that says, hold the breath and brace the tummy. But unfortunately, what's happening is we are essentially holding our breath throughout the day now in bits and pieces, and we are bracing ourselves throughout the day. So we're not returning to the parasympathetic, the rest and repair. We are instead staying in the fight or flight. And when I say 20,000 times a day, this is very important, because there's only 2 muscles that if they don't do their job, you could die in just a few minutes. That's the heart muscle and the diaphragm, the primary breathing muscle. And so it's no joke in your brain when your brain recognizes, hey, I'm not breathing right, it goes through a cascade of physical and emotional, chemical, mental responses to try to survive, essentially. The physical response is that it starts breathing with these muscles and all these things that we then go to massage therapists and try to release. Right. Unknowingly. That's right. Also, it could be your back, the low back. The quadratus lumborum is known for being a secondary breathing muscle. And so our back in general, the thoracic erectors and all sorts of things. So the point is that if you want to actually solve your back tension, you actually have to start breathing, or you don't have a chance for doing it any more than just the first, few hours or 24 hours after a massage or whatever, right? So that's physically, and that's just the tip of the iceberg physically. It's naturally, we as pregnant women, we're often talking about constipation because of the hormones of relaxing, right? So the diaphragm is supposed to be a natural massage mechanism for the organs, helping peristalsis, helping us to expel our toxins and waste by pooping, for example, right? So there's a ton of physical, and then 20,000 times a day, this is supposed to be going on. So then let's look at your mental, emotional. If your diaphragm doesn't work, then mental emotionally, it's shoving you into this frenzied anxiety state more likely. What's the first thing you do with someone who's panicking? So, whoa, slow down, take a deep breath, right? Technically, take a deep breath into your belly and ribs, not into your chest and shoulders, but into your belly and ribs, because it has a physiological connection to relax us, to put us into the parasympathetic, the rest repair. And by the way, if you're pregnant, it's you are in a mostly anabolic parasympathetic phase. Like you're growing a baby. That's a growth phase, right? Not a stressed phase, right? So we want to reinforce that. Now, to answer your question more fully, you said TVA and pelvic floor. Is that if the diaphragm doesn't work, I guess coming back to physical, then it is actually the homeostatic regulator for the muscle underneath, for the bottom of the box, and that is your pelvic floor. And so if your diaphragm doesn't work, oops, pelvic floor doesn't get the natural tone that it should have. And the same thing happens for TVA and diaphragm. The canister doesn't get that response of the elastic recoil because the diaphragm's not going into the chamber. And so if you don't breathe well, then your core can't work, and all sorts of chemical things inside your body don't work as well. And it's 20,000 times a day. This is a huge piece. It's why it's one of those 5 foundations, and don't take it lightly. It's not a joke. This is what we spend most of our time fixing as corrective exercise practitioners at Fit for Birth.
So
Brooks
what
is
I hear
back.
you saying is working your TVA and your pelvic floor and breathing through your diaphragm instead of through your chest. It can help us de-stress. It can reduce incontinence. It can help in the prenatal period to help push out our baby, have better birth outcomes. In the postnatal period, it can help us recuperate faster, flatten our tummy even, and anything else that you want to hit on that
you know, the first thing is, yes, everything you've just said there is absolutely true. I can start connecting the dots as to how those things happen. But yeah, if you don't have your pelvic floor working because your diaphragm's not working, then yes, your pelvic floor can't do its job of contracting and relaxing at the right times to help your baby deliver. You said some things in there that I think I'm blanking on right now, but everything you just said, returning to your flat stomach or to have it shot at a flat stomach. You know, how many women do we know, or people in general, but the classic example is a very thin, not heavy body fat woman, right? There's not a lot of body fat to pinch, but she has this pouch below her belly button sticking out, right? So and then she oftentimes, the story is, I have 5 pounds to lose. This is a pretty common example. But it's actually not really 5 pounds to lose. It's not body fat to lose. What it actually is that she doesn't have her inner core, the diaphragm, the pelvic floor, and the TVA complex working. And so because it's not working, she's learned a hold pattern with her upper abs, and the lower abs are just going to keep coming out 5 years later, 10 years later, and it never really goes away. But it's not like a jiggly body fat thing. Body fat, that's one thing. Nutrition, exercise, all that stuff we know. But if you're not addressing the correct muscles on the inner core, especially during pregnancy and postpartum, then you don't have much a shot to get the body that you want in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and that's why in my Strong Sexy Mamas workouts, I really try to remind everybody to turn on that TVA, course it in those abdominal muscles, not just bring your belly button into your spine. That cue works for some people, but the corseting in of the abs seems to work too. Well, I know we don't have loads of time left, but I do want to get to a couple things. Okay, I'll get you one in just a second. And Brooks is starting to lose it a little bit, I think. But I do want to talk about how prenatal and postnatal guidelines have changed, over the generations. When my mom had me, and probably when your mom had you, a little bit of exercise was allowed, but just come out for a gentle walk. And when we see women working out, and I get this sometimes in my classes, or if I post a video on Instagram, I'll have, and it seems to be men in particular that say this. Let me grab them a squeeze for you real quick. Saved by food for toddlers. So what I was going to say is, sometimes I'll get messages, and it seems like it's from men, older men, who are like, "You shouldn't be doing that. What are you doing? That's too tough for you. You shouldn't be doing that when you're pregnant." And the guidelines have changed, but there are some things that we need to keep in mind to make sure that we're safe.
Well, they say is in any cultural generation, what's required for the new thought to come in is the death of the old thought, which is the death of the old generation. So we are in the midst of a shift, and there's a very big difference between what sort of is expected to be done versus what can possibly be done. And so, you know, the main shift is that we really used to think of pregnant women as fragile. And you know, here's one thing to get my point across in one story is that I think it's the 1956 Olympics. Russia would coerce their female athletes to get pregnant in order to perform better. Now, you might sit there and say, well, how's that possible? What do you mean pregnant women were performing better? Yes, so long as it was first or second trimester. Third trimester, you have a physical, obviously, like something's there. It's going to be harder to run, move, but the point is that any trimester, it's a blood doping effect. You're actually better at every cellular chemistry thing you can imagine: heat dissipation, oxygen and carbon dioxide exchange, and waste removal. And you are far more capable as a pregnant woman. It is your evolution, nature, Mother Nature has given you a gift so that you can be that much more empowered to create a healthy baby. Because remember, that's how our DNA works. That's how all animals in the entire world work, is that all resources are for reproduction. Yes. And so don't think for a second that you are anything less than a superpower when you become pregnant. And of course, our research shows that. That's right. You know, and there was a big one of the most landmark studies came out in a book by Dr. James Clapp, who did all this research on pregnant women, and it was in 2002. But you know, here we are in 2020, and the memo hasn't gotten across to many OBGYNs, in part because if they don't do this level of continuing education, they just simply don't know. So they're still going to say, limit your heart rate to 140 beats per minute. Clapp's research showed without question that his actually quote that we refer to in the course is, it's probably better not to measure heart rate at all, because it can be misleading. Follow your feelings. And that's maybe a good way to dovetail this entire conversation, is that in the end, you follow your intuition. You know, like, take whatever it is that meshes with you from this discussion that seems exciting. Take one thing and just practice it for a little bit and go from there, knowing that you're going to find the next thing later on. Have I addressed your question in some detail, at least?
Well, or one more second. Yes. So the idea of following heart rate is something that is a bit dated, isn't it? Because Clapp's research said, you know what, hey, look, let's take a look at a woman's heart rate in the first trimester anyway. It's already going up then. How can it's not really a reliable indicator. So instead we use RPE, or the rate of perceived exertion. So where should we stay as a pregnant woman to make sure that we are in a safe zone during those 9 months?
Yeah, well, okay. If you know me, then you probably know that the word should, that's a tough one for me, right? So, but I'm going to start with follow your intuition, right? There are some people here that if I say 7, great. Seven is sort of like that midline. You don't push yourself too much. You sort of feel, hey, I'm pushing myself hard. That's great. But I don't want to take anything from anyone. If you are used to CrossFitting it and you love it, and or whatever it is, that's boot camp, you know, Barry's boot camp, whatever it is, and you want to keep pushing, there's no reason why you can't. I would suggest that you get the right muscles working when you do that. But to be able to continue to push at that level, absolutely. So I don't want to leave people with this idea of don't push yourself above a certain level necessarily, but I do want to leave you with the idea that push yourself to where you feel comfortable. You know, first of all, pregnancy doesn't have to be the time where you break records. You know, like, I'm telling you, you are capable of it, but you don't have to. You know, like, I spend most of my time with pregnant women who are training, just simply getting them to turn on the right muscles, because that's what most of us need, especially because in between sessions, we go and sit down again, turning off our glutes. And so we've got it, you know, we have to, it's sort of like paying the price for for sitting down all day, for you know, in a way that's not like our natural way, right? And so,
but there hasn't been, as far as I know, there hasn't been research for women in a very intense type of exercise, you know, doing HIIT training and Tabata training and things like that, whether that's good or bad. And at least from the information I have is that there hasn't been research done because it comes from an ethical standpoint. You're not going to put a prenatal woman through the paces and risk a baby. So maybe it's okay, but we don't know, do we?
sure. Well, I'll tell you that in the CLAP studies, it was moderate to high intensity 90-minute sessions 5 times a week. So that is a lot.
Incredible.
That's what I'm saying. And you know what they found across the board in every single case? Lowered risk or lowered need of epidurals, lowered exhaustion in delivery, labor and delivery, less need for C-section, less need for all the drugs and surgery. Basically, that was the defining factor, and that's a lot. So I would say that you know, and those, by the way, those women weren't being correctively exercised with the right muscles. They were just pushing it and pushing it hard. So, you know, use your judgment, use your intuition, follow where you're at, and just know that wherever you are, you don't have to get worse during pregnancy. That is a big piece to leave you with. You can get better during pregnancy, and that's what I encourage everyone to go. Wherever you are, let's improve during pregnancy and use pregnancy as an awesome time, a launch pad to get yourself to a level of health so that you can continue to be the example of health for your family, right?
Yes. One other consideration that seems like is out there on the internet everywhere is pregnant women should stay off their back. They should never go on their back. And from my understanding, prenatal women should not sleep on their back if they can, or do the corpse pose in yoga for long extended periods of time. But a couple of minutes, 30 seconds, a couple minutes should be fine as long as the woman is feeling fine. Is that correct? And why is it that we do need to be careful when we're on our back still?
Yeah, well, let's understand where the rule came from. And at Fit for Birth, we like to, you know, push the boundaries, as you can see here. So it's important to understand where the rule came from, and then important to understand what's possible again. So where the rule came from is because in the 3rd trimester, when you have this, you know, a growth of baby, and it's unusual for you, and your body's figuring it out. If you lay on your back, baby can press against, your uterus can press against your major arteries and veins. And if it gets placed in just the right spot, it will diminish the amount of blood flow, which diminishes the amount of oxygen to your brain. And then what might happen is you might feel lightheaded, for example. And then that would usually be the time that you would roll to your side and shift it because, hey, that's your body telling you, not right now, please. However, what's happened in our society is we now have pregnant women ritualistically coming to me saying, oh, I read that rule and now I'm so uncomfortable. I just want to sleep on my back, but I know I'm not supposed to. And so they're miserable for their whole pregnancy because they're being in this rule. Meanwhile, I have other pregnant women who are like, screw the rule. I'm just laying on my back and it's fine, because they're what are they doing? Intuitively listening to their body. Understand the rules, but please intuitively listen to your body and do what's right for you at the moment. It would be very, 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 very unlikely that you would lay down on your back and then not realize that it was uncomfortable for you and have the intuition to turn, and that would be unlikely. And so, you know, be aware of it, understand it, feel it out, and then, you know, try to sleep well, because if you do sleep well, it's going to be better for you and your baby's health overall, right?
Yes. One other consideration that seems like is out there on the internet everywhere is pregnant women should stay off their back. They should never go on their back. And from my understanding, prenatal women should not sleep on their back if they can, or do the corpse pose in yoga for long extended periods of time. But a couple of minutes, 30 seconds, a couple minutes should be fine as long as the woman is feeling fine. Is that correct? And why is it that we do need to be careful when we're on our back still?
Yeah, well, let's understand where the rule came from. And at Fit for Birth, we like to, you know, push the boundaries, as you can see here. So it's important to understand where the rule came from, and then important to understand what's possible again. So where the rule came from is because in the 3rd trimester, when you have this, you know, a growth of baby, and it's unusual for you, and your body's figuring it out. If you lay on your back, baby can press against, your uterus can press against your major arteries and veins. And if it gets placed in just the right spot, it will diminish the amount of blood flow, which diminishes the amount of oxygen to your brain. And then what might happen is you might feel lightheaded, for example. And then that would usually be the time that you would roll to your side and shift it, because, hey, that's your body telling you, not right now, please. However, what's happened in our society is we now have pregnant women ritualistically coming to me saying, oh, I read that rule and now I'm so uncomfortable. I just want to sleep on my back, but I know I'm not supposed to. And so they're miserable for their whole pregnancy because they're being in this rule. Meanwhile, I have other pregnant women who are like, screw the rule. I'm just laying on my back and it's fine, because they're what are they doing? Intuitively listening to their body. Understand the rules, but please intuitively listen to your body and do what's right for you at the moment. It would be very, 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 very unlikely that you would lay down on your back and then not realize that it was uncomfortable for you and have the intuition to turn, and that would be unlikely. And so, be aware of it, understand it, feel it out, and then, try to sleep well, because if you do sleep well, it's going to be better for you and your baby's health overall, right?
And so listen to your body. That's the basic thing we need to get across, right? Listen to your body. If you're feeling nauseous or dizzy, out of sorts, it's not suitable for you, no matter what it is, whether you're on your back or you're not. Right?
That's right. That's absolutely right. That's absolutely right.
So during the prenatal period, obviously our tummy muscles stretch out. We start to lose the brain-body connection, and it's tough to get back in the postnatal period for some women. You have some exercises and some protocols to follow at Get Fit for Birth or Fit for Birth, and even a certification program that trainers like me can go through to best serve prenatal and postnatal women. So can you give us a few tips and also tell us about your program?
Well, a few, if I heard the question right, a few tips on
preserving our core and
our core as
core.
we stretch. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I would like to keep it, the simple thing to say, and the thing that's the most profound that we get our results on, is please tone your core, not just during exercise, but all day long, a little bit. This is the natural way to do it. It's your core breathing, belly pump. Think about those words, core breathing. That means you're not breathing into your chest or whatever. You're breathing into your belly, into your midsection. You breathe into there, and then belly pump. What does that mean? Well, if you're pregnant, hug the baby. If you're postpartum, corset a little bit on the exhale. Here's the key factor. Inhale, fill belly and ribs. Exhale, hug your baby. That's the key factor. Exhale and make a smaller tummy. But don't just hold small tummy all day long. Inhale, exhale. The natural cycle of all of life is the in and the out. That is the secret. That is what's going to get you the biggest bang for your buck, hands down. And like I said, that's what we essentially spend the first 30 hours teaching our practitioners to do. Yeah, does that cover your question, or what am I missing?
That's awesome. I mean, even when we're lying down and we get out of bed and things like that, it's good to roll on our side or brace our core and not just get up the way that we normally would, because the relaxin hormone has already started that process of letting the belly expand, which is natural. It shouldn't be something that we're afraid of in any way, shape, or form. It's making room for our belly or our baby in the belly. But the more that it stretches out, the integrity can be hard to get back, can it?
That's right. And I wouldn't even blame it on the relaxin. I would just say that during pregnancy, people tend to let their bellies go and hang. And there's a tendency there, not everyone, but that tendency of hanging starts to create the last 3 months of stretch, 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 stretch. And then if you've built that program, and by the way, most people before getting pregnant are already in an underactivation of core. The core just doesn't work. Usually there's two issues. You're either letting your core out go too much, or you're holding it too much. Those are the two issues that we basically are going to see. And so what's the solution for both? Breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out, and use it. That's the, and that's why I don't even have to assess you to give you a solid exercise. But if you do know that you are hanging out too much, then fine. inhale and fill your belly and ribs to only 80 or 90%, and then spend more of your focus on the exhale. If you know that you're a fitness enthusiast who's been taught by your trainers to hold your stomach in a lot, and you realize, oh, I need to let go a little bit, then work more on the inhale, fill belly and ribs, and then relax a bit on the exhale, even as you're bringing back together. That's the solution, and that's what's going to go the furthest. And if that's the only thing you do well, it's kind of like if vegetables is the only thing you do well in your diet, you're going to have a really, really great nutrition habit. So if core breathing belly pump is the only thing you do well in your exercise as well as in your daily life, you are going to have an outstanding function, an outstanding recovery from birth, and just an outstanding capacity to live life vigorously without having aches and pains.
Right. And I think it's important to mention too that when we are inhaling and filling our belly, we're not we're not sticking our belly out really far and opening up all the connective tissue and everything, are we? We're inhaling in a big way through our diaphragm, and as we're exhaling, we're hugging everything in and corseting those abdominal muscles in.
Yeah. The first step is, for the first few weeks, you want to sort of relearn it, because most of us have shut this process off. And so I would say, don't worry about it. Just inhale, fill the belly and ribs, and do it big and do it exaggerated. But after the first few weeks, sort of stage 2, I would then go back to this point of maybe now is an okay time to inhale only 80 or 90%, because you're right. During pregnancy, that is a time when you're already stretched. So we want the system to work in harmony. We want the yin and the yang. We want the inhale and the exhale, the full cycle. But if we notice that we are already pressing outward and extreme on one end of the cycle, well, yeah, just minimize that a little bit by not inhaling quite as much. It is a real concern. And, that's it. Feel for where you are, and then try to just build the weak point in the chain, right?
Right.
Identify what needs to be actually the piece of your focus now. And at first, the simple way is please focus on both inhale and exhale fully. Then as you start to feel yourself out, you'll say, oh, look at that. I'm actually one of the holders that needs to inhale more fully. Or I'm one of the relaxers who needs to kind of exhale more fully.
Right.
And that's the direction.
And then finally, before we go, I think it's really important for women in the prenatal and postnatal period. I really believe the future of women's healthcare is that everybody's going to make it part of their routine to go see not just a doctor or a midwife, but also a women's health physical therapist, make sure they're activating the correct muscles in their tummy and in their pelvic floor, and get the overall musculoskeletal structures checked and all of that. I think that the fitness industry has been underserving women. The medical industry has been underserving women. And I think it's great that Get Fit for Birth and Fit for Birth has really been on the forefront of making sure that women are looked after. What's the best way for a fitness trainer and a women's health physical therapist and a doctor and a patient to all chat and all be on the same page? Because we as fitness professionals are not medical professionals, but what we are is, along with being a fit girlfriend by the side of these prenatal and postnatal women, we see them a whole lot more. Once a week, 3 times a week, 5 times a week, depending how often they're working out with us. So we're sort of the first line of defense, aren't we? How can we work with medical providers to provide the best care to prenatal and postnatal?
Well, yes. Great question. How we teach at, by the way, our website's getfitforbirth.com, but yes, our company name is Fit for Birth, right? Just to clear it up. So how we teach at Fit for Birth is that we are practitioners. You're right. In practicality, we personal trainers, fitness, wellness professionals tend to be the front line. So the people are coming to us first, and we're answering the questions. So what do? Well, we teach core breathing, we teach GLUTES, we teach the things that are foundational components. And if those things aren't making good progress, if those things are like, ooh, that's a little out of the ordinary, we're not making progress where I expect to go, then we refer to our women's physical therapist. Now, in terms of the whole circle here, is that doctors really need to educate themselves on an exercise level or need to refer to the exercise specialist more so in modern countries, and that's not happening in most countries. I was going to say there are a few countries that have a standard of care where after you deliver, for example, France, I believe, is one, you get a mandatory 16 sessions of pelvic floor therapy. Well, we could do that in every country, but we don't right now. And so because of the way that the system is run and who's in charge and stuff like that. I mean, we are a pill popping and surgery for example, well, I shouldn't say, I was going to say America, but then I think Australia and UK. I mean, we really just simply are in most modern countries. That's what's driven it. That's the way the system is. And so that's where people are being shunted. So we're going to need our doctors to increase their education or their ability and desire to refer to other specialists and to share a bit. Instead of saying, oh, don't worry about that diastasis, it means nothing. Don't worry, it means nothing. Well, that's completely disregarding the entire mental emotional structure of a human being right there, you know? And so where does a women's physical therapist come into play? Unfortunately, usually after the problem or the injury has occurred. And that's just the way, again, physical therapy works in most modern countries. It's after the fact. So really what we need is preventative education. What all this is boiling down to is watch this. Because if you watch this, you're more likely to care for yourself and to, I tell you, it will save 5 times the time. If you just did 1 month of prenatal corrective exercise while you're pregnant, it will save the whole entire 1-year experience. I'm not even kidding. Like it's night and day. Please don't come to me and say, fix me after the fact. Although, of course, I spend a fair amount of time doing that and I can help, of course, but it will be 1/10, 1/5, whatever it is. It will be so much shorter to just simply care for yourself so that it doesn't become the problem. And so the more we can get this out there to people, the more likely we are going to care for our population and then have the healthy population of moms that we need to birth the healthy population of children that is the next generation of this world. This is what we need.
Good point. Good point. And just from, as we go, just from a prenatal perspective, because I'm obviously getting very close to birth, how much does it help a pregnant woman in the labor and delivery phase and in the recovery to continue exercising and to really pay special attention to the core? You know, that's what's going through. We're getting lots of changes happening, but this is where we're really noticing them.
Yeah. So, well, okay. Again, let's just start with the big umbrella here is that when you have your core breathing belly pump, for example, working, then your bounce back, you're basically toning your midsection all day long, 20,000 times a day. So your recovery isn't even with a focus on recovery. It just is. It just continues, right? I'll address labor and delivery specifically by saying that when you go through training like this, it's ritualistic that you push your baby out here's some quotes, in 3 pushes, in less than 20 minutes. So that's not an accident. That's because you've been taught how to use your transverse abdominis for an exhale. You've been taught how to, imagine if you've been hugging baby 20,000 times a day during pregnancy, then you go to birth your baby, and now your baby is able to be guided out. And of course, your uterus is designed to do that job, but you can help with some transverse abdominis, right? So you can, it's a very direct link.
I like the energy Anna brings to the classes. Her strong, sexy mama classes are always fun. The time goes really quickly, which is important for me. I hate going to an exercise class and feeling like I'm looking at my watch every minute, hoping for it to be over. I don't feel that with Anna's class. And yeah, I just enjoy the vibe she brings and her infectious smile.
It's just a place for me to go to find out more information about what's safe for me to do when I'm pregnant and at the different stages of my pregnancy. I'm someone who was quite active before I fell pregnant and was determined to continue on that journey throughout my pregnancy. But for me, I know I probably would have pushed myself too hard if I didn't have the right information available to me. And Strong Sexy Mammas I know that Anna's done the research from talking to professionals, you know, from women's health physios to obstetricians, and gotten all that information, as I said, in one central place for me to refer to. So that's what I love about it.
I'm feeling good, feeling strong, I'm feeling fit, I'm feeling energized, and yeah, classes with Anna have been awesome, keeping me on track through my pregnancy, and I feel as good as I've ever felt. It keeps me limber, it keeps everything moving. If things don't feel good, then Anna's always got a modification for me, which is great. But I just like to feel like myself and like to feel as fit as I can, so this is the best thing for it.
It's an amazing class. I love Anna's class. There's so much energy, and it's in such a beautiful setting at Bondi Beach. You can't get better than this. You will feel sexy and strong after the class. It's great, brilliant.
It's about confidence. Having a baby really takes its toll on, you know, you mentally, socially, physically, and I think having a group of like-minded mums working out with you is really good at helping rebuild all of that.
I love that Strong Sexy Mammas comes online, and you know, it's those short 15 minutes, 20 minutes, and I have 2 toddlers, a 1 and 2 year old, and there is no way I can get to any of those mums and bubs classes anymore. Like 15 minutes, I can totally squeeze into my day. I can let them run amok, let chaos happen, and they even get involved, get in the way, and then, you know, 15 minutes I'm done, and I'm back cleaning up after them.
Getting out of bed in the morning to actually go and do some exercise has probably kept me sane. You know, having a baby who doesn't sleep and is not on solids at the moment, who's breastfeeding, you know, does take its toll. So getting out and being able to be active and obviously join, you know, an amazing community of girls, it's really empowering.
I like working out with Anna and Strong Sexy Mammas because I struggle to motivate myself at home just with having a 14-month-old baby, and I've had a few injuries, and you know, these exercises in particular go at different levels, so I can do the kind of lower exercises as opposed to all the jumping and things like that, and it's helped me to get back motivated again.
I love Strong Sexy Mammas because it's so important to do exercise in a safe and controlled way after having a baby. It takes such a toll on your body, and Anna is amazing at giving options. It's a long recovery, and she's been amazing at helping me progress through different movements as we're going on our postnatal journey.
I love working out with Anna and the Strong Sexy Mammas. I'm having baby number 2, so I've been doing the Strong Sexy Mammas program when I had my first one, which was 19 months ago, and it's just been great that I've been able to use the program throughout the pregnancy and then after my pregnancy, and it's made me feel stronger being pregnant a second time round as well. I feel like my core is better, my glutes are better, and you need so much more energy with the second baby, so I feel like Strong Sexy Mammas has really helped me.
You can do it from home. Everyone knows babies can be difficult sometimes, so to be able to work out in your house, in your home, and include the baby in it, I think is absolutely amazing. Cost effective, I mean, look guys, we're not working, are we? Not everyone has loads of money, so to be able to just jump online, watch a video and work out with your bub at home and get fit again, I think is such an amazing program. It's also starting to teach them about an active lifestyle. They might be young, they might not know a lot about what's going on, but I think it's really good to start that active learning in their brain from an early age.
Pelvic floor has always been such a taboo topic, and I don't think it should be. We've all got one. We're all going through the same thing once we have a baby, and I think it really needs to be out there in the environment for everyone to know, but for everyone to understand as well how important it is to you as you get older once you've had your babies.
But the postnatal workouts that we do are so important, and the way that women's bodies recover, that is not talked about enough, not dealt with enough. Everyone launches themselves right back in, and I like to think about that first period as almost a 4th trimester of pregnancy, and paying attention to the pelvic floor, being able to find workouts like yours that are fun, being able to involve the baby, but don't forget about what our bodies are recovering from, and being able to feel comfortable taking it really slowly so we can get, you know, fit faster in the end, but taking it slowly to find a class that does that and pays attention has been amazing.
I love Strong Sexy Mammas because it gives you the opportunity to work out at home when you're too busy and have a hectic lifestyle and you can't make it to the gym, and Anna has amazing energy and her programs are super easy to follow.
I love Strong Sexy Mammas because it makes me feel good, and I encourage all women to do it, all mummies to do it, because if you feel good, then Bub's going to feel good and everyone's going to feel good, and the world's a better place. I love how energetic they are, and they get a full body workout, and because I've had a cesarean, I get the option of doing some low impact, and then later on I'll be able to do some high impact, and they're just so versatile, and really it's about fun for me and getting my body back to where it was pre-baby.
I love Strong Sexy Mammas because of the online videos. They're easy to do at home with your little ones running around, and there's lots of choices you can do.
I was like, wow, this is for me. And so the belly's going and getting strength in my arms, and with strength comes just greater confidence. I just feel really good in my skin at the moment, and I love that.
What is it that you like about taking my classes?
Well, first of all, it's awesome fun. Smile from ear to ear when you're doing it.
Fun. So you would recommend it?
Absolutely try out her class. It is super fun and really safe and well done and thought out, and I think that it's a really great class.
Oh, thank you.
I like also the fact that you offer lots of options. So, for example, you know, postnatal women need to take it a bit more easy, but even someone like myself who's not postnatal anymore, my kids are 6 and 8 now, you know, but I might have other issues. I've got a sore back, so I don't do high impact exercise in general.
Yeah.
And I like that you offer options.
But she is always working it, doing the low impact exercises.
That's right. Just because it's low impact doesn't mean it's not hard work. It doesn't mean that you can't sweat or you can't get a good burn, or, you know, good pump, a good exercise, challenge your cardiovascular system, strengthen those muscles. But I love that you give options.
Yeah.
Absolutely, I would definitely recommend Strong Sexy Mammas. It's been great to meet other like-minded mums. It's been great bonding for Valentina and I really feel a change in my body already.